Welcome back to the Pyro Rookie Dossier series. Tonight, we are going to be talking about wide receivers, the 2017 rookie wide receivers. This is our fourth video of this nature. We've already done the quarterbacks, the tight ends, and the running backs. Tonight, we are going to bless you with the position of wide receiver. I've got the Pyro Heartbeat with me. From down in Southern California. I've got Waz with me as well on this video from beautiful Chicago. I happen to be in Michigan right now myself, and really fired up to talk and drop fantasy knowledge, give you guys the goo you need to bring home the bacon. Bacon meaning money from fantasy football leagues and trophies and stuff like that. So what's going on, guys? How you doing? Let's start last one of these dossier videos. So I think we're all excited to get in and talk fantasy, but also excited to be done with these.
Yeah, we're wrapping it up. And number 4 here, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get a chance to bring on the kicker dossier. But I think we'll be okay without that. So I'm doing well. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to have it on the record that not a single person has disagreed with any of our takes. So as of right now, we're perfect.
Perfect. Well, I'm hoping that we keep that record intact. And regardless, man, I think just we know that rookies now make a big impact in fantasy football. But I'll actually let you kind of start out, Heartbeat. I think at the very beginning of this, you kind of put a nice little kind of a forefront note, not a footnote, about wide receivers and what's been going on. So if you want to kind of just spew that out. It gives you a sense that while important, they're not really ringing up the big numbers.
Yeah, well, I mean, after the huge 2014 rookie crop with Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins, Brandon Cooks, et cetera, everybody's really been chasing that rookie wide receiver, the Wookiee wide receiver. And I did some of the research, and I started in 2007, which was the Calvin Johnson, Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch draft. And since 2007, there have been 15 rookie receivers that have averaged 10 or more points per game per the games that they played. So it's about a little less than 2 a year. And then there are 22 more that average over 8 points a game. So that's really, 37 guys that have been at least a wide receiver 2 for rookies. So it does make an impact, but when you're bringing these guys up, you got to hit.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I can't remember a season where there were 3 wide receivers taken within the first 9 picks, and obviously then there was a few more taken in second round, and then there was a ton taken in the third round. So what we're going to do here tonight, we're not going to go through and talk about every single rookie drafted. We've kind of put together a list of guys that we think will be fantasy relevant for this year. We'll talk a little bit about redrafts and where they should fall in drafts coming August and early September. And then obviously you guys always have a good take as well about where these fellas and how they can play from a dynasty standpoint. So the first wide receiver taken by the Tennessee Titans was the 5th pick overall, and that was Corey Davis. Guy is just the measurables for him are off the charts. To me, I'll let you kind of get into it, but to me, from the minute I saw him playing and doing his thing, he reminded me of T.O., maybe a Roy Williams. Also, Roy Williams, that player out of Texas that was a Dallas Cowboy and a Bear, didn't have such a great career, but go for it, my man. For me, he had that Roy Williams and that T.O. as his upside. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with my player comp, and I have him as a Keenan Allen type because he's still got a kind of smaller build. I do see him with the Terrell Owens upside, but I don't think he's there yet. T.O. was just such a physical beast. I mean, we all remember T.O. working out in his driveway while he was suspended or whatnot, just with fucking shredded abs. And, he was a physical beast. And, I mean, it's really hard to compare someone to him and to, realistically say that they're going to be like Terrell Owens just because he's, one of the top 3 wide receivers in the history of the NFL. based on statistics. But I see him as a Keenan Allen, a guy who's really, he's going to be a target monster, really. And if you guys saw Elliot Priest posted on Twitter today, it's at Elliot Priest. Marcus Mariota, his best route thrown was the slant route. Corey Davis, his most productive route run is a slant. So that really looks like a match made in heaven. And off of that, I mean, Corey Davis was the most prolific wide receiver in the history of college football. I mean, I'm going to stop there. He has all the tools. He really, the one hesitation I have is Mariota is coming off the broken leg. Corey Davis has the ankle injury that kept him out of the combine. So I think there could be some growing pains, but I think this is going to be a power combo that if you're in a dynasty league, you want to jump on right away. It's either him or Leonard Fournette for the first pick in all dynasty drafts.
Yeah, and Corey Davis is obviously the top wide receiver in this draft class. The thing is, all the scouts and analysts, we're all pretty much on our own with how we classify and categorize them. We have to categorize him and kind of judge him based off of what we see so far. He hurt his shoulder, had to skip the Senior Bowl, then he injured ankle ligaments, he needed surgery, and he's missed a combine. He didn't participate at the Western Michigan's Pro Day. So I don't think anyone is likely to have credible athleticism measurables to analyze him properly, and we're all on our own. He looks like, a 4.5 40 runner, give or take. Anyone can argue like 4.4 stuff and, maybe a little slower. His 3 cones probably just under 7 mark. I don't believe there's anything about his athleticism numbers that would begin to turn people off, nor do I think he put up any numbers that would make people's eyes pop out of their head. He just looks really good on the field, but without those measurables and, some of those times it's a little bit difficult to put such a high capital into him like the Titans did. But I love everything with Mariota. If you are connecting any kind of wide receiver to Marcus Mariota, I'm probably all in on it. I think he's what everyone thinks he is, an above average runner with above average agility. I don't want to put the term elite yet. I want to see him play some games. I want to see how he, measures up, how quick he runs, and how he actually utilizes his strengths against some of these, NFL level defenders. When I watch him on tape, you guys comped him to Keenan Allen, and I know we've heard this time and time again, but he reminds me of a tall Antonio Brown. Runs really nice routes, not afraid to go over the middle. He doesn't prefer to go over the middle, but he does do it. He has very good hands. There's just this X factor that he has also. He's a little confident when he's out there playing. He knows he's going to beat his defender. He knows he's going to make that catch. And the quarterback we saw in Western Michigan, he really relied upon that fact. So, he just threw the ball up and knew that Corey Davis could bail him out. So that's something that Corey Davis does. You get that kind of pedigree with the receiver who's confident, who has that X factor, who runs really good routes. I don't see any flaws in his game or translation to the pros. I just I wanted to see what he looks like, running after those injuries. And, I think it's going to mean a lot. It's not that he's not good. His draft stock's already ahead of his reality, in my opinion. It was between him and Mike Williams for the top prospect, but it was easy because the Mike Williams started getting exposed based on his times. I just really wish we could have had some equal leverage with Corey Davis as well.
Do you guys think with Corey Davis on where his ADP right now is in early season mocks and NFL 10s and whatnot, he's sliding a little bit. It was crazy about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But right now he's basically the 39th wide receiver being taken, and he's going basically a couple behind Rashard Matthews at the 37. Out of those 2 players, both on the Titans, and we'll talk about another player, Taylor, that's on the Titans as well, another rookie in the show. But out of those 2 guys, first for redraft, but then for obviously I think for dynasty we know the answer. But for redraft this year, who you liking more of for stats for this season?
I'll start off. I'm actually surprised that Matthews is going ahead of Corey Davis because I've been seeing the opposite lately. But then again, I've been playing a lot of best ball season-long leagues, and a lot of my drafts have to do with dynasty. But it seems like Corey Davis is going earlier in those leagues, obviously, with the dynasty leagues. And that Rashard Matthews, he's falling, though. And I don't know. Like, I still really like Rashard Matthews this year. Everyone's so in this rookie fever where they think Corey Davis is going to take all these targets and it's just going to be him. The thing is, he's going to be fighting with Rashard Matthews and Taywan Taylor for those targets, and the running game is still there. It's, it is all going to go through Corey Davis at some point, but we have to realize that Marcus Mariota and Rashard Matthews created such an awesome connection last year. Rashard Matthews was super consistent when he actually was on the field. Wide receiver 2 numbers in any format, very consistent, score touchdowns. So I don't think Mariota is going to just give that all away, that confidence, that kind of safety net right away. And dealing with a guy like Corey Davis, who is still coming off of injuries and, is a rookie. But, I mean, the guy can play. It really depends on their ADP. But if Matthews is going before Corey Davis, they're going about the same price. Man, that's really tough. I think I'm gonna have to go with Corey Davis just because I think he will get fed more targets. So, but it's really close. I'm still a fan of Rashard, and I still think he's gonna be a wide receiver 3. So,
yeah, I mean, in redraft, I don't think it's at all a bad idea to go on the 7-8 flop to grab them both. I think Rashard Matthews is going to come out strong. He already developed that great rapport with Mariota, but then Corey Davis is a superior athlete, and that's going to show by halfway through the season, call it around Thanksgiving. He's going to develop into that wide receiver 1, the prototype that every NFL team is looking for. And I mean, we talked about it a little earlier, like both Mariota and Davis being injured. That's going to play a role in their development. But I really think Davis is going to have a very, very strong end of the season. I'm not gonna say it's going to be to the point of this, but I think he could have an Odell-like impact on fantasy at the end of the season.
Let me touch on that too, because it makes a lot of sense. I mean, with Corey Davis, you have to think about the fact that he was drafted number 5 overall for a reason. The Titans needed defensive help, but they went with a wide receiver at number 5. It was, if you consider it, a radical move, just slightly, based on how much help their defense needed at the time. And they're like, let's take another wide receiver to grow with Marcus Mariota. They didn't draft Corey Davis to be a second fiddle. He's going to get the star treatment, and it will happen sooner than later. But you still have to consider Rashard Matthews is still going to get involved, and he still is, sharing targets and touches with those running backs. But on a team with a very good quarterback in Mariota, on an offense that's loaded with talent and a top offensive line, Corey Davis should be the lead producer. And, but week to week, if you have them both, good luck figuring out who's going to be the primary receiver. I think it's going to be a little murky at first, and I think it's going to make a little bit more sense in 2018 and beyond.
Oh, I think the interesting thing that you touched upon, I mean, Julio Jones, they traded a lion's share of picks to get him, the Falcons, while ago. He went 6th, I believe. So taking a wide receiver 5, that is super, super high. I could be wrong, but I can't really remember. I mean, Calvin Johnson, I think, went number 2 overall, but that's 9-10 years ago now. So this is a guy that from draft commodity was taken super high. The thing I love about him is whenever I've watched him in any of the highlights and any of the pre-draft, I can't say that I've ever saw him play live on TV, but in the film that I've watched, I love the way he catches away from his body. He's confident and has enough he's savvy enough to use his hands with confidence. And I think really what that allows him to do most is just, you see these body catchers that they're so worried about bringing the ball in that sometimes they easily go down. They go down to their knees. They're not as confident with turning the ball around or making the first move. Where this guy's got that size, that speed, that quickness, and he can catch with his hands. So I like the ability for him on routes to be able to make some extra yards and get some yak out of it. So if he can kind of learn and not have any injuries or hangups there and kind of can play to the speed of the NFL, he's got the talent and the tools and the hands to get a good jump on here. And I think I kind of agree with Heartbeat. I think the second half of the season for him could be something special.
Yeah, no doubt. And when I actually comped him to a taller Antonio Brown, wishing I had the measurables to say that, with a little bit more confidence. But I do not think, even though I do believe that the football will go through Corey Davis through the air in Tennessee, I don't think he's going to get that that Roethlisberger Antonio Brown treatment. It's not going to be like just all day to Corey Davis. They're going to share the ball around. They're going to game plan around all of their options there in Tennessee. But I think they're going to do really well, and they're going to be a winning football team, more so than last year. And I think with that, you're going to see a lot more kind of safe playing, and just kind of, there's going to be some passes, there's going to be some running, but it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I really like the Antonio Brown comp with both of those players coming out of the MAC. One thing that I'll say is different is Antonio Brown was a 6th-round pick, and Corey Davis was number 5 overall. So he's not going to have that chip on his shoulder, not as much as Antonio Brown did. So that's one thing that I see. And I kind of link in Marcus Mariota to a Drew Brees light, in the fact that he's a guy that he's never really had an elite receiver, and he's a guy that's going to spread the ball around. He's not going to pepper one guy with a 30% market share. So, I mean, Davis is going to have to be extremely effective with the targets that he gets in order to become that elite receiver. But one thing that I saw in his film, I think he will have a top 3 whip route in the NFL day one. When he goes in at that 3 to 5 whip route, turns in, cuts it back out, there's no one that can stop him in the league.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's the play that I saw a lot of success. Get him the ball close to the line of scrimmage and see what he can do with it. You guys got anything else that you want to drop on Corey? If so, fire it up. I'll say one thing about him. He played at Western Michigan, which is real close to Bell's Brewing, and I really love Bell's Brewing and some Two Hearteds, which I drank a shitload of them last weekend. So there you go.
I will say this: if you play in a keeper league, I think he's going to be a great value if you grab him this year on the 6th, 7th, 8th round, because he's going to be really good next year at the end of this year as well. So I think he's going to be a really good value in leagues that you can keep players over multiple years.
That's awesome to know. I am in a keeper league, but in that league we actually have to start a rookie as a position. So he's going to be one of the guys that goes early, so that sucks. Anything else? Or should we move on to the next fella?
Let's go to Mike Williams.
All right, Mike Williams, the LA Chargers, a team that, God, I thought they already had just a bevy of wide receivers and tight ends and mouths to feed, and kind of surprised me. I heard a lot of people thinking that he was going to go to the Chargers, and I just didn't see it. But 7th pick overall, super high. Chargers went and got a guy that they love. Huge dude, 6'4", actually didn't run the 40-yard dash at the combine, but he's got some serious measurables, maybe a little slight. What do you guys think are his upside for this year and beyond, Mike Williams?
Well, I mean, first off, we got to talk about where he comes from. He comes from Clemson, which has just been producing an exodus of great wide receivers. You can start with your guy, Martavis Bryant. They got Nuke Hopkins. They got Sammy Watkins. So they're just pumping out wide receivers. That being said, I hate Mike Williams. I don't think he's got it. I think he's a little too slow. I think he depends on that back shoulder fade, and I think that the smarter and more athletic cornerbacks in the NFL are going to figure that out.
Yes, I am entirely on board with you there, Heartbeat. I hate this pick so much because it's such a slap in the face to Tyrell Williams, who is just a badass, awesome wide receiver. And it's like now they're going to put him on the bench because they're paying this. Oh my God, this wide receiver so much money. They're going to force him in the role. I don't know how long it's going to take him to realize that Tyrell Williams is the best receiver that they have right now to use. I mean, what is attracting people to Mike Williams? I mean, it can't be his college career, his college output. I mean, he had a good run at Clemson, but it wasn't off the charts or outstanding. It was good, not great. I mean, if we have to consider that in top prospect terms, if you're just good as a top prospect, it's not, top prospect worthy. Let's see. He flimsy 32.5 vertical, just an unimpressive 10-foot 1-inch broad jump, mediocre 15 reps on the bench press. He skipped all the speed and agility drills at the combine. Skipped them, and that's a red flag because he did everything else. So you have to consider him as ducking, those workouts. it's a red flag when he ran that slowly for a top prospect at a 4.5. Some people said 4.5, but others say 4.57, 4.58. So pro day, it's probably closer to like a 4.60. You know what I mean? So it's so many red flags. You look at his tape and you barely see any separation. So you have to assume that he has more so in that high 4.5, low 4.6 range speed. He makes many tough catches over the top of defenders, or out muscling them. But the key point, he's always has a defender on him, pasted right on him. So I don't think he's as quick as some people think. So if you have a good, not great college career and a mediocre pre-draft measurables, then throw in the fact that he suffered a broken neck in 2015, which forced him to miss the season. Why is that everyone even thinking for a second to draft Mike Williams that high? Here's something I just did no more than like 2 to 3 hours ago. I just traded in my Dynasty League Mike Williams away for Tyrell Williams and a 2018 second. So everyone's like, Twitter loves the Mike Williams side, but I'm like, I killed it because Tyrell Williams is such a better receiver than Mike Williams, and I will argue till I'm blue in the face about it.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about what he's going to do in that offense too. So, unless you disagree, D-Rex, we all see him as more of a slower possession wide receiver. He more of a vertical guy. That's his game.
Possession guy, no doubt. That's what he will be.
So my player comp was Kelvin Benjamin for him, and I think this is great timing with Kelvin Benjamin showing up to training camp, 280 pounds. But so his game is going to be in the red zone. He's going to be a go up and get it guy on the goal line. Antonio Gates has the second most touchdowns for any tight end in the history of the sport. Hunter Henry is a very good red zone threat. They have Keenan Allen, who's already a possession receiver. Travis Benjamin can take the top of the field off. And Waz already said he likes Tyrell Williams more. So what is his potential? You guys see like 5 touchdowns this season?
I don't know. It's a head scratcher all around. I kind of agree with you guys. I don't really know what they were thinking here. Now, the one thing that could happen, though, is you could see that Rivers, if he does get a ton of play time and a lot of snaps, Rivers, could force the ball into him like he used to do with Keenan Allen. What's going to happen with Keenan Allen? That guy seems to be injured every year. If that kind of happens again, opportunities arise. But right now, there's just too many mouths to feed. So your expectations as a rookie, a guy that you guys don't even think has that many skills either, he doesn't have separation speed. Maybe his best thing is maybe he's like a Malcolm Floyd, just a deep threat for him, and they'll show this big body and sending him long all the time. But I don't know. I'm going to probably stay away from the guy. But I think a lot of the bad press that you guys are giving him might help him slip a little bit as we get closer to drafts. But yeah, not really seeing where this one's really going to go for a redraft at all.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where he's going to fit in. If anything, I do believe that they're going to push him over Tyrell Williams first and foremost. But I think that's a mistake, obviously. But I think they'll learn from that, and sooner or later, Tyrell will start coming in. But here's the thing. So where is he going to play there for the LA Chargers? When you look at his mediocre athleticism numbers, it limits his options as an inside receiver. He has height, but like a way below vertical and broad jump. So, what's he really going to do on the outside? I think the whole red zone thing makes a lot of sense, but they already have like 3-4 red zone threats there for the Chargers as it is.
And they love giving it to Melvin Gordon in there too.
Yeah, I mean, they have a great running back. I mean, he has to play as a limited inside possession type, a secondary role type of player. He's going to be a fine NFL, 2 or 3 for his team. He's going to be that guy that's going to stick around, just be a possession guy. He's like a better Laquan Treadwell. I mean, just putting it that way. But that's the kind of receiver you're getting, a guy who's just going to catch the football and just kind of, sit down with it wherever he's at. So yeah, not a fan. He's not a bad athlete, but he's not a great athlete. He's not worth the price. He's going as the second wide receiver off the board, and he doesn't deserve to be so. From this draft class, there's at least 5, maybe upwards of 8 wide receivers I would have taken before Mike Williams. So that's how much I'm not on board with him.
It does seem like that in kind of looking and prepping for the show and thinking about it. I feel the same way as you. There's guys that are going third round of the NFL draft that just seem like they're going to be better pros.
Yeah, I do think he's going to get opportunities that he doesn't deserve or what we think he deserves, because the Chargers did just move to LA. They're going to want to play with their shiny new toy. But Phillip Rivers is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL, so I don't think he's going to force anything in there just to do it for the owner. So, I mean, overall, redraft, dynasty, I'm staying away from Mike Williams. Plus, when has a Mike Williams ever worked out in the NFL?
Good point. Very good point. Not a very good name to have for wide receiver. I think it's kind of funny that he doesn't want to wear a number in 80s. There was a couple of numbers in 80s. Like, I don't want it. So for all the rookie symposium stuff and all the pictures, he was wearing jersey number 7, which is what he wore in school at college. And I guess he was a 7th pick, lucky number 7. But, buddy, you're going to have to switch your number.
Grow up, man.
Phillip Rivers has got number 17. I don't think he's going to give it up to you, buddy.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I know about him. Yep.
All right, so Williams, just a bust across the board. Let's go to the speedster. Cincinnati, I was calling for them. I'm glad they made this pick. It's exactly what they needed to do for A.J. Green. Open things up, and they took John Ross out of Washington with the 9th pick in the first round. I think above and beyond, I'll let you guys do your thing, but above and beyond just being a speedster that can just haul ass, he's a good route runner. Everything I see about the guy is pretty good. I know he's really only had one good year in college, and that was last year. He's kind of didn't do much his freshman and sophomore year, but I love this pick and what it's going to be able to do to open things up for A.J. Green.
Yeah. So John Ross, he is fast. He's really fast. We saw him break the record there, 4.22. The thing is, what is the value of a really fast wide receiver in the NFL? We've seen it time and time again. These guys are super damn fast, and then they're like, oh, he probably wasn't worth that high of a draft pick. So, I mean, the last 2 drafts had college productive 4.3 running first-round picks. Will Fuller, Philip Dorsett. Have either of them really mattered thus far? I mean, what do teams do with them in the NFL? Typically, they just use them as decoys or, send them deep to pull away a safety and throw the ball somewhere else. So you have to, consider limited targets for someone like John Ross. Not to mention, 3 wide receivers going in the first round, John Ross being one of them. He wasn't drafted probably to sit idly by, but that's A.J. Green's. That's his team. He rules that roost, So best case, John Ross is a Bengals number 2 wide receiver. I think we're all expecting that. The thing is, when has the Bengals number 2 receiver really mattered for fantasy besides a few games here and there? Yeah, Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Tyler Boyd just recently. You don't really care about any of them. So, but, you have to kind of believe that the Bengals found some kind of a religion, are going to use John Ross so heavily that he's worth a top dynasty rookie pick or, a pick at all in redraft. He might be, or he might just have a Will Fuller rookie arc, high pick that, started off okay and then just kind of died down, and we're all just kind of mulling over him and not really talk about him anymore. So, I have mixed feelings about John Ross. It's kind of tough when you're sharing targets with A.J. Green.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt, A.J. Green's the guy there. That's unquestionable. But so I was looking into how the fit was in Cincinnati, and in 2014, Andy Dalton, as graded by Pro Football Focus, the worst quarterback in passing 21 to 30 yards downfield at a negative 13.6 grade. And then he was middle of the pack, 31 to 40 yards downfield at negative 0.5. So those were his grades, both negative. But then when, Hugh Jackson left, they brought in Ken Zampaniz, and he really started calling the game more aggressively. And they were actually pushing the ball downfield on 20-plus routes, 13.5%, which was good for the 6th in the NFL. And my thoughts on Ross is I see a lot of Odell Beckham in him with a much smaller catch radius. I mean, he has the wheels to get away from anyone. I mean, he has the fastest 40 time in the history of the NFL. I mean, well, without Deion Sanders being official. But so, yeah, let's talk about the injuries. In 2014, he tore his MCL. 2015, he missed the entire season with a torn ACL. So his knees aren't there. I mean, I have my own knee injuries. I'm 26, and I'm pretty much screwed. So he could be more screwed than I am. But I think John Ross is going to be a much better football player than a fantasy football player, in the sense that I think their aggressive play calling is going to really open up the intermediate routes for AJ Green. It's going to open up the red zone intermediate for Tyler Eifert. They just brought in Joe Mixon, who I really like, who's going to have a large impact in the passing game, at least until Gio Bernard gets back and fully healthy off his ACL. And I think he's going to really he's going to bump their offense up a lot, but he's not going to have a direct fantasy impact this year, at least.
No, you're right. And you leave out the fact that just this year he had his torn labrum surgery. So there's just so many injury flags for a small guy. You know, I don't want to call him fragile, but he's trending in that direction. When you mentioned that he's probably going to be a better football player than fantasy asset, you're probably right, because I would say at most you might get like the John Brown, Mike Wallace, Deshaun Jackson performances, one, maybe two breakout seasons, some moments there, nothing like amazing, nothing too radical. But, then, you have the Bengals forking over a lot of money for 4 to 6 really cool long touchdowns a season, so you're going to get that kind of trend from that kind of receiver. He's going to work really well for Andy Dalton and the Bengals. He's going to pull a lot of coverage. It means really good things for AJ Green. And I will say it so many times, AJ Green is the dude to own this year. He's gonna ball, and I think John Ross is the best asset to AJ Green. It's awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
I agree, and I think Eifert could push 17, 18, 19 touchdowns this year just with him stretching the field so much.
Yeah, if he stretches his muscles as well and stays healthy.
Do you guys think they're going to be using Ross as the return guy? Can that help? Is there a Tyreek Hill-esque angle to him where they're just trying to kind of use his elusive speed and just try and be real creative on getting him the ball, become more of a gadget player? Is that a possibility?
I really hope not. If they want him to pay out that first-round draft pick, the high first-round draft pick, putting an injury-prone or what we believe to be an injury-prone guy in on the most destructive plays or the plays where you see the most injuries, it's a Bengals move. So they shouldn't do it, but they probably will. None of us wanted them to draft Joe Mixon, but they seem to really enjoy doing things that nobody wants them to do.
By the way, my comp for John Ross is probably closest to Santana Moss, the kind of guy who's really quick, who can catch a couple, touchdowns, be helpful for his football team, but he's never going to be such a great guy. He's not going to be the guy who's going to be around for the longest time. He's going to move. We could see someone like John Ross moving around, whether it be because of an injury or just because of, hey, you're not worth this kind of money. So I think I see a lot of Santana Moss and John Ross, especially as a Jets fan. I saw a lot of Moss. He does remind me a little bit of how he used to play.
Are you guys also, the big buzz is that obviously the Bengals offensive line woes are in question, and this is a guy that might need a lot of time to get open down the field? Is that's another issue that has to be considered? So I think your point that I think he's going to be a better football player and a better asset for the team overall than maybe for himself individually as a fantasy prospect is unquestioned. I think the fact that finally AJ Green's going to have a dynamic player on the other side of him or lining up near him is something he's never had. He's never had another guy that's just like a defense has to be like, holy shit, we got to keep our eye on this guy and we've got to manage this guy. I mean, I've just never seen it. LaFell last year, Boyd, both of those guys are lumbering, slower guys. Who is Marvin Jones was there, who's a good player, but no one's going to be too worried about any of that. So I just think it's a great thing for AJ Green. And you see AJ Green, man, he is moving up and up and up. And I think I haven't seen a mock where he hasn't been that 6th or 7th pick right after. He's usually pretty much fail safe maybe Evans in a couple instances, but fail safe, the fourth kind of wide receiver going in this year's draft. So anything else you guys want to throw down about Mr. John Ross here?
Yeah, I have one thing. I do think he's worth a middle to late round flyer in best ball leagues because, as we said, he will have those one or two big 6-catch, 200-yard, 2-touchdown games that could win you a week. But in season long, if you get him and you rely on starting him, you're gonna be pulling your hair out more than D-Rex.
Oh, holla for $1, low blows all around. What up? Ooh, it got bright. Cool. Yeah, that's actually a great call with the best ball. Not a bad call there at all. So we'll see what happens, man. He's not. There's a lot of questions here that he needs to answer. Maybe he can, and maybe he can get it done. The Bengals sure think so. 9th pick overall. Wow, that's high. All right, you want to move on, Waz, or you got anything?
No, I'm good to go, man.
Okay.
I want to get on to one of my favorite guys of the class.
Yeah, you love this guy, and I love him now as a result of your love because I've been keeping my eye on him and checking him out. Watched some video on him today. Legit player. This guy. When I think of the old late 80s, early 90s kind of guy, where he's a football player. You can just tell he's been playing wide receiver his whole life, and it's like second nature to him. So Zay Jones taken by Buffalo. He's the 37th pick overall in the second round out of East Carolina. Go for it, Waz.
Not to mention, I know he had a lot of buzz about, hey, there's a chance he could slip into the first round. Everyone's like, oh, hell no. Zay Jones proved himself. And this dude, I'll get into it, he is one hell of a hard worker. I see no flaws in Zay Jones's game, maybe except for his 201-pound body and a 6'2" frame. I mean, he's a little thin on paper, but he looks like all muscle. He's in terrific shape. He's a terrific athlete. He's as smart as a receiver as you'll ever find, I think. I don't know if he's ever going to be like an elite receiver, but I know he won't be worse than, like, let's say, a B-plus floor. He's never going to be the best, but he's never going to be just mediocre. Zay Jones reminds me a lot of Antonio Brown and Stephon Diggs, only as a better receiver, and I think as a better human being. All these qualities mean a lot to organizations and football players. Not to mention, we just heard in this offseason, Sammy Watkins' option wasn't picked up by the Bills. That's a good sign for his future as well for Dynasty. Let's see. So going to Buffalo looked bad. It looks a little bad on the surface. I wasn't stoked about it. He's a wide receiver on a team that loves to run first. There's a weak quarterback in Buffalo there with Tyrod Taylor. He's definitely behind Sammy Watkins in the pecking order year one. But there are some positives. I mean, the new management, we see they're like, no joke. They're not joking around. Sean McDermott, they got rid of the GM. He was bounced after the draft. So I think 2017 looks a little iffy for Zay, but it might not be so bad. Definitely better from 2018 onward. Landing spot feels bad, but I think some of that has to do with the stink that we all get from the Bills. Still has some of that Rex Ryan stank on it. You know what I mean? So it's like Zay Jones, he's going to start right away. He's going to be the number 2. He's going to at least be productive. I can't see him going to the next level with Tyrod Taylor, though. I look forward to the day where Buffalo gets a legitimate quarterback. I think his upside is capped in the short term. There's hope right now, but it does look a little murky. But I'm going to let Heartbeat kind of chime in a little bit because I'll talk about Zay Jones for like a good 20 minutes myself.
So the big thing about Zay Jones for me is nothing really bursts off the paper when you're watching film. I mean, he went to East Carolina, and from this film, he really didn't stand out as this big. He wasn't dominating the competition. Yeah, I have this stat that he had 4 games with 17 plus catches, 10 with double-digit catches. So he was obviously getting the volume work. But as you're saying, in Buffalo, so let's assume Sammy Watkins stays, which I believe I believe that Sammy Watkins will stay in Buffalo. Tyrod Taylor, not so sure about. So I think he's a better number 2 than a better number 1. Sammy Watkins is the deep threat. Zay Jones will be open over the middle. And Tyrod Taylor loves to scramble. He loves to put his head down, take about 4 steps out of the pocket, and then look up. And that's where I think Zay Jones will be used the most.
Nice.
So,
The one thing I really like about him is the fact that he played all 5 years. So this is a guy that's coming. He's a seasoned player. He's got a lot of experience, high level football learning, and a lot of practices under his belt. Whereas some of these younger guys come in super green, and there's more of a learning curve for them. There's more that they gotta kind of figure out. So I definitely like for Zay Jones that he played 4 years. He started, for the Pirates as a freshman, and kind of got better each season. And had serviceable numbers all the way. Even as a freshman, had 62 catches for 604 yards and 5 TDs. Next season, he went up to 830. Then he goes up his junior year. He's got 1,000. And then last year, basically, I don't even know how this is possible, but he had 1,746 yards on 58 catches.
158.
What?
158.
Oh, 158. Okay, got it. There's a 1 missing there. I was going to say, how is that? I was reading that. I'm like, how is this even possible? Okay, 158. That seems a lot more like it. I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy's averaging like 37 yards a catch. All right, yeah, but that's what I like about him. He's coming into the NFL. He's got a lot of experience in organized and high level football. So that should really pay over. And look, we got Woods is gone. Woods was their top scorer. Obviously, Sammy Watkins only played 8 games, really probably only 7, and seemed to be banged up the whole season regardless. But Robert Woods was their leading scorer at the wide receiver position. He's in L.A. now with the Rams. There's not really any competition there. Justin Hunter did all right last year. Sammy Watkins, I think he gets banged up so while maybe Tyrod Taylor's not the perfect situation for him, the guy that's throwing the pill to him, he's kind of got an open, not much, a path of least resistance to have him getting a ton of snaps in his rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. Day 1 starter right out the bat. He's not going to really be competing with anyone. And I knew one of you two would mention the whole, too high volume passing game. So I do have some notes on that. So not only you, Heartbeat, but most of Dynasty Twitter, most of everyone who's hating on Zay Jones, they ding him because he came from a high volume passing game. So his numbers don't count as much, So, especially, you mentioned D-Rex, his 2016 year where he had 158 catches, 1,746 yards, and 8 touchdowns. But in that high volume offense, he caught 44 or more, over 44% of that team's completed passes and 44% of the total receiving yards from his quarterbacks. So do you know how many of the wide receivers that caught 44% of their team's completed passes and yards in their best college season? There was only 11 of them. I didn't give you time to answer because I knew you didn't know the answer. And only 6 of them came from Division I schools. So one of those 6 is Zay Jones. The other 5, check out these names: Jordy Nelson, Jordan Matthews, Earl Bennett, Nate Burleson, and Tyler Boyd. So I know it's a little mixed. So which ones did so with 100-plus catches in their season, like Zay Jones? Jordy Nelson and Jordan Matthews. So you have to consider that Zay Jones is following in a college path of success in a high volume as guys like Jordy Nelson and Jordan Matthews, who I'm really high on. I know a lot of people are down on Jordan Matthews. I don't think it's all on him, but we're not going to get into that. But I understand his stat totals are pushed a bit. But the East Carolina quarterback, he wasn't great. If you watch the film, everyone knew that Zay Jones was going to get the ball, but he got it anyways, and he got it a lot. So when you think that Zay benefited from an easy American Conference schedule, just note that he averaged 13 catches for 126 yards and no touchdowns per game against South Carolina, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina State, with 2 pro prospect cornerbacks this past season. He was playing against legitimate, defenses. He went to the Senior Bowl, destroyed it, led the game itself in receiving. He missed several touchdown catches by shoestring calls, and I think it was just barely out of bounds. Some are very questionable. A few hairs away from having one of the best all-time performances of the Senior Bowl, but he was playing with crappy quarterbacks. And not to mention, he's a great blocker too. Zay Jones is a great blocker, and he's willing to do so. He's a well-rounded wide receiver. He has the he has the volume. He has all the reps to make it work. He's done it all. I can start naming off all his accolades. I'm not going to totally get into that. Just don't sleep on Zay Jones. And some people are. He's falling in the second rounds of like rookie startups and dynasty. I'm taking him in the first. I don't care if I don't have like a late first and I'm sitting at 107. I'm going to consider someone like Zay Jones. I really like the kind of wide receiver that he is. The only downfall is Tyrod Taylor, and that's not going to last forever, So I think it's worth taking a shot on, especially when he's not fighting for snaps against any other receiver. He is behind Sammy Watkins, but the fact that they already didn't exercise his fifth-year option it's interesting enough to like Zay Jones even more. So I'm on board with Zay Jones. He's not my favorite wide receiver at this point from this class, but I like him very, very much.
Yeah, I'd like to do some deep digging on why he ended up at Eastern Carolina instead of a Power 5 school, because he does have all the traits. I liken him to a Keenan Allen type. He's not going to blow you away at speed, but he's going to have some nice crisp routes, and he's going to be a possession guy. Like Tyrod Taylor, though, how many times are they going to complete passes in a game? 28-ish, probably. And
most of any team last year. But he ran a 4.45, so he's got that speed. And the one thing I think with Zay that's impressive is that 20-yard shuttle. He had the best measurables in that, in the fastest time of any receiver, beating out quick little guys like Curtis Samuel, beating out Cooper Kupp, and so he's got that kind of quick burst in that quickness. So. I think that he's gonna be able to have that translate. And there's some guys that just, Jerry Rice is one of these guys, just play, and even when you see it, they might not have the fastest times in the underwear Olympics, but once you get a football pads on and that ball in his hands, it just looks different. They either play scared or they're just really good. And I think the one thing that you said, Waz, and I'll let you continue to pull smoked here for a bit, is the fact that the guy, you're right, watching his highlights, you see highlights, and an 8-minute highlight film, you see like highlights from one game, and it's like you can just tell on a drive that the guy got 8 catches. They know the ball is coming to him, but he still gets the ball anyways, and it's pretty impressive. So he seems to be a man among boys. Maybe the East Carolina thing plays in there. But I think that he's going to be able to be a great wide receiver too in this league, and I'm going to take a chance on him in some leagues. Definitely, just think he's a great football player.
Yeah, not to mention that I totally disagree with you, Harpy, when you say he's not that great of a route runner. I think he's meticulous at it, and that's what made me fall even harder for him. I love a really good route runner, and he's got great hands to go with it. So you have the kind of person almost like a Brandon Cooks kind of route runner with those great hands. It looks awesome every time. And not to mention, you said, D-Rex, that he's just a great football player. He's also just an awesome person, academic All-American, volunteers local hospitals. He's, does stuff with autism. When he's not involved in making a catch, I mentioned he's a blocker too. He's not a physical mauler. He's just always on the lookout, just wants to hit someone too. He never wanders aimlessly on the field, always doing something to help out or produce this football team. So I think he's going to be a great asset for Sean McDermott. I think he's going to be a great asset for the Buffalo Bills while they're in this weird rebuilding stage. I just think he's going to be around there for a while, and I think the Bills are going to benefit from him very well, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think what I'm looking at is he wasn't a very extremely sharp route runner. So what I think he was doing was he was finding holes in the coverage rather than running the predetermined route. I will say this, though. His father, Robert Jones, Super Bowl champion with the Dallas Cowboys. So he's got football in his blood. I agree with you that if he is in the right situation, he could be a great fantasy aspect. But Tyrod Taylor is not that. He's very capped with Tyrod. And, they restructured Tyrod's deal, so it looks like Tyrod's going to be out after next year. But there's no guarantee that they're going to get a better quarterback after that. And that's my one big hesitation. And he could be stuck in Buffalo for a long time if they do let Sammy Watkins walk.
Let's cross our fingers.
All right, let's go to, unless you got anything else, either of you guys, let's move on to the next guy. Shall we?
Shall we?
We shall. All right, Curtis Samuel. Damn, this guy is a ridiculous athlete. Carolina added a second elite talent kind of guy in the second round, 40th pick out of Ohio State University. Some people think there's a little bit of an overlap with him and a McCaffrey, but in all honesty, he played more wide receiver and lined up more in the wide receiver. He was in the slot for 425 snaps last year compared to only 220 being in the backfield. So, he had some direct snaps as well. So I kind of like the fact that he's got some running back experience for some gadgetry and some if they need him as a running back. But really, while he was kind of listed as a running back at Ohio State, he kind of was used more as a wide receiver. So I think the learning curve for him at the next level is going to be a little less than people think, and he's much needed. He could potentially just replace a Ted Ginn Jr. role right away. But I'll let you guys kind of go in on what your thoughts with Curtis Samuel, elite next world athlete.
Yeah, I don't think he's that Teddy Ginn type. I mean, I remember watching Ted Ginn at Ohio State, and Ted Ginn was more of just like a straight line speed. He was incredibly fast, but Curtis Samuel is more of a shifty guy. He's more of he's not that fast. He's obviously fast, but he's not that fast. But he's more of a change of direction guy. I really like the player comp to Percy Harvin, and I mean he seems to have that He just makes it look so effortless when he gets the ball. He looks like he's walking on water. And I mean, landing at the in Carolina with the Panthers, they already have Cam. He likes to do it himself. We already talked about this on the rookie dossier. They have McCaffrey, and their skills kind of clash a little bit. Although we do think that they can both be used successfully in an offense. I think he'll be more of a return man his first year. And once they get rid of Kelvin Benjamin, I really do think he's going to be that Percy Harvin type without the migraines and without the weed.
Yeah, there is some overlap there, and I'm going to continue to think so. I think Christian McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel, they limit each other's upside in some shape or form, no matter how you look at it, because Curtis Samuel worked really well, in the backfield as well. So, I mean, he has these skill sets that you won't be able to utilize properly if you're relying so heavily on someone like Christian McCaffrey. But, I love Curtis Samuel. Yeah, I mean, he looks just awesome. He's fast, dangerous. He's, definitely one of the most intriguing prospects of this year's rookie class. But, you mentioned D-Rex of, the snap share that he had out of the slot and out of the backfield. How great is it to have a prospect you can line up at running back for 10 to 15 plays a game and at wide receiver for like 25 to 50 plays? I mean, he works as a normal traditional speedster wide receiver, but then he comes across in motion for a rushing play from the wide receiver spot. Or you can just line up as a running back and take a few carries and or be used as a passing game option. I think that's awesome. I'm worried with, we mentioned the Cam Newton narrative. We mentioned the Christian McCaffrey narrative. How much room is there for Curtis Samuel as a running back? Not so much, I think. So, but I'm super excited to consider him as just a wide receiver option there in Carolina. Their options aren't great. You have Greg Olsen, then you have, a guy who's going through weight issues in Kelvin Benjamin, and a guy who never lives up to his size in Devin Funchess. So I think they desperately need someone like Curtis Samuel. I love how he could possibly be utilized there in that offense. I don't think it's always going to be Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield as well. Not only do I think Jonathan Stewart is still going to have relevancy this year, I do think Curtis Samuel is going to be worked in some shape or form, and they have a guy that can do something like that. They're going to use him. So, and he's not, Curtis Samuel isn't just a fast guy who, they need to figure out what to do with. Just great averages, great metrics, great numbers in college. I like what I see. He has a comfort level even running the football. He just looks confident everywhere on the field. I wish he did go somewhere else than Carolina, but this is what we have to work with. I think it could work out. I'm definitely buying him in Dynasty. And depending on his price and redraft, I'm not entirely sure what it is right now, but it's definitely something for me to consider if I'm looking at some rookie flyers and some late round guys, because there's only like a handful of them I like this year for the wide receiver rookies.
I think one thing to consider also is Ted Ginn did get 14 carries last year, mostly down on just straight up like reverses. And there were some, I think he had a couple straight snaps as he was going in motion as well. But I think, when he's lining up and split out in the slot or at the end, I think they're going to be getting him some of these plays. Think about Tyreek Hill only had 24 carries last year. So I think they're going to try and get him the ball and figure out a way to get the ball in his hands and see what they have. And, there is a lot of mouths to feed. I do not think that Stewart all of a sudden is going to be a ride in the pines. So we'll see. But I think Samuel is so explosive and so intriguing that this staff is going to really try and see what they have in their hands and figure out ways to get them the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
one thing.
You guys would take him over John Ross, right? We're all on board with that.
No, I'm taking Ross over him.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a discussion for another day. But
that high draft capital is it pushes him over for me.
Is that long term? Like for you, Oz, are you talking about for this season, or are you just talking in career in general?
Oh, if I'm referring to dynasty leagues, give me Curtis Samuel more times than not, especially at the price. I mean, I would pass on John Ross, or I'd trade out of a John Ross slot to move down a little bit and pick up a Curtis Samuel and then someone else on the back end, and I would think I killed it.
That's a different discussion. I was thinking at the 5 spot, are you taking Ross or Samuel? I'm going Ross every time. But at the value, that's a discussion to have.
Okay.
One thing I'll say is they play in the NFC South. NFC South champions were the Atlanta Falcons. Think about how much speed is on that Falcons defense. They got 2 of the quickest guys in the draft. So they're clearly trying to combat that Falcons defense, speed on that defense, and I really think they're going to be able to figure out how to use Samuel and McCaffrey on multiple formations in order to get more speed on the field. I think they're trying to fight fire with fire here, and I think he could have he'll have a better career than he has a rookie season, but I think he could have a fantasy relevant couple weeks his rookie year.
Let's hope the guy gets his gets his route running down and can really kind of hone his craft. And now that he's a wide receiver, we might see that they just plan on really using him in that wide receiver role, and they're not going to have him doing too much of the running stuff. But he's strong, man. The one thing I really like about him, and I've also seen – I've got a lot of friends that went to Ohio State, and obviously that one of the best games of the year was that Michigan game, and he was the difference maker. He scored the winning – I think he scored the last 2 touchdowns. I know he scored the one winning touchdown, and so he's playing up against the elite talent and still looks like the best player on the field. So I like I like the prospects for him being able to have his game and his athleticism translate to the NFL level. I'm excited as hell to watch both those guys, him and Christian McCaffrey. Hopefully they can live up to the hype. Anything else you guys want to go through for this fella?
Yeah, I have one quick thing to say on him. Obviously it doesn't seem like we know everything about Curtis Samuel, but no one does. He only had 107 rushes against Power 5 teams and 65 catches. So he doesn't really have that much tape out there. So he's still a question mark, but that's not a negative thing.
Yeah, I think also another thing to remember is that he was behind Ezekiel Elliott the previous season. So one, maybe learning some moves from him and how to be a pro or whatever, but just his career in general was kind of silenced a bit at OSU because of the talent that was ahead of him. All right, we're going to get some Juju going. Juju Smith-Schuster, 2nd round pick out of USC, 62nd overall, and he goes to Pittsburgh. Man, they have obviously, let's say he is the wide receiver 3. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be able to pass a Coates. But let's say he's the wide receiver 3. Think about the players that he has to learn from. And I know one of the things that I read is that he's been practicing with Antonio Brown for last offseason, and I think he's learning some of the best moves from one of the savviest wide receivers out there. I think you should go on this guy first. Waz, you can just give a couple little things, and then I know this is one of your favorites, Heartbeat. So go for it, Waz. And what are your thoughts on this fella?
Well, just today, I think I read that the Steelers been working Juju Smith-Schuster in the slot. So you have to kind of consider how they're planning to use him. You also mentioned the fact that, he could be utilized as a number 3. Well, first off, I think he falls in the perfect situation in Pittsburgh. I mean, in my opinion, I think the Steelers are dying for a number 2 wide receiver to step up. Martavis Bryant, he's shown he cannot be relied upon. I know we want him to work out, but think about from the Steelers organization, they can't really rely on him. And Sammy Coates is just awful. And DeMarcus Ayers, he was a media pipe dream last year. I remember that whole thing that they tried to work out with him as well. I think Juju is a very solid, stable wide receiver. He's a perfect complement for his mentor, Antonio Brown. My only concern is Juju is like a 1-year play. Hear me out. So I believe the Steelers are crumbling and quietly crumbling. They're falling apart, and I think it's all tied to Ben Roethlisberger. So it's like you have to consider once Ben hangs up his cleats, and it could be this year or next, but it's going to happen soon. I think we are seeing it coming slowly but surely. Even though if he's talking about the contract thing and leaving, he has been kind of hinting at everyone. So once he hangs up his cleats, Antonio and the rest of the team, we're going to see that start falling apart. And then Smith-Schuster, that pick doesn't seem so hot anymore. So, but for this year, and this is one of my more favorable plays for 2017. I think it's a good or great play, and it's value play for now to even consider trading later if you're in a dynasty league. So play him this year. Hopefully he has a good year, and then maybe consider trading him in 2018 when you start seeing the Steelers maybe, with the whole talks of Roethlisberger retiring and whatnot. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Juju. I like him this year. I do not like him any longer after that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know how we feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers after Ben Roethlisberger, you can just go check out the Pyromaniac Twitter account where D-Rex posted just a really intelligent photo of Josh Dobbs, where, I mean, who could ever question that guy's intelligence? But yeah, Juju is definitely an insurance policy for Martavis Bryant. He had to sit out the whole year due to weed last year, and one more slip up, and I don't think he comes back to the NFL. So the Steelers had a first round grade on Juju, so they were more than excited picking him up in the second round. He's been working with Antonio Brown, so you have to think that Antonio Brown went back to the organization and said, like, this kid Juju, he has a dance named after him. We should go get him. I like that. But I really think Juju is going to end up with his career, as long as the Steelers get a good replacement quarterback. I think he's going to end up like a Marcus Colston type, one of those big slot wide receivers where you have to think Martavis could be gone from the Steelers soon, even though we love his talent. He's an alien. But one thing to note is Ben Roethlisberger has the worst home road split in the NFL. In 2016, Juju had 31 catches at home, 31 catches on the road. So he's one of those guys, he could be a road warrior for the Steelers. So when you're thinking don't start Ben on the road, maybe you can start Juju.
Nice. You guys ever had Juju's, that candy?
Yeah.
No.
That's I don't even understand. It's basically like, hey, let's put something that's going to stick to every one of your teeth, make your jaw so tired, and by the time you finally get it off each of your teeth, you're not even going to want to taste the friggin' thing. Worst candy ever. It's basically what Juju is. It's like a joke on everyone that buys those things. Let's just hope Juju Smith-Schuster isn't the same for NFL players. But I think I like your call there. But I think he's almost like a smaller Keyshawn Johnson. He kind of, it doesn't do, and obviously the USC is it's an easy parallel there. But he's kind of not the fastest, not the biggest, not the strongest. But he kind of seems fast, kind of seems strong, and he just kind of gets it done. So, again, I think this is another player that I think falls into the football player role to me. He's just a good football player, and I think it's another kid that seems like a good kid. Just seems like in the interviews and everything that I've seen from him, just seems like a guy that's kind of the anti-Martavis and going to come in there, work hard, get it done, keep his nose clean. Meaning not do cocaine. But yeah, so obviously there is an insurance policy. But Waz, I think it's a great call. I think in general, I think that they won't. I think you're going to see Bell is probably going to be gone next year. Ben Roethlisberger's on a year-to-year. It's now or never. It's now or never. Who knows what the future holds for that team?
I think Juju is going to be between his rookie and second year. I think he's going to make a great leap, especially if we see Bell or Martavis leave. I ran the numbers, and based on our buddy Stag Party's metrics, in the last 3 years, the Steelers distribute the ball to wide receivers about 50% of the time, 50.5, and that's the second lowest in the NFL because they have Le'Veon Bell. So that's about 32 passes per game, and let's say Antonio Brown gets 160 of those targets because Antonio Brown deserves 160 of those targets at least. Martavis Bryant had 94 in the year that he played, 12 games. So let's say he has 100, and let's say Le'Veon Bell gets 130 targets because that's about where he was if he played all 16 last year. That only leaves 120 extra targets for Juju, Eli Rogers, and Jesse James. So I don't think he could have that big of an impact this year. But once they leave one of those big pieces, especially if they retain Ben Roethlisberger, I think he could have a really big 2018.
Is he a red zone target? Is that maybe where – because you see some of the guys even from last year on Pittsburgh, everyone kind of had some touchdowns. You know, Eli had had 3 touchdowns. Hayward Bay had 2 touchdowns on 6 catches. Kobe Hamilton had a couple, and then even that DeMarcus Harris had one. So there's some touchdowns to go around. So maybe that's where he can make hay this year, is being kind of that goal line target. Because I think if he's playing the slot now, that means he's taking Eli Rogers' targets, and he got 66 of them last year. And Eli was, I think, an undrafted. He was injured for 2 years, so they've got no loyalty to him whatsoever. Even though he had a couple nice games.
Yeah, and even if they throw the ball to Jesse James, we saw that one of those 3 Eli Rogers touchdowns go straight off Jesse James's face into his hands. So maybe just stick around Jesse James and hope to catch one off his face.
That's hilarious. Good point. Good point. That's what I'd be doing. What else you guys got? Got anything else you want to drop on him? I think you got some more heartbeat. You like this fella?
Yeah, I really like him. I don't really like the Steelers' landing spot just because, as Walls was pointing out, Ben Roethlisberger could be on the way out, and he's really what the motor that runs that offense. Le'Veon Bell is still his situation there. He still hasn't signed the tender, so he's not 100% sure staying there, and he actually posted a April Fool's tweet that he wasn't signing the tender. He still hasn't signed the tender, and it's been 2 months. So that might not have been April Fool's. Antonio Brown got his big deal, so he's going to be there for a while. But if Juju can get into that third receiver, that slot, I think he could have a nice, solid career.
Cool. All right, should we go to the next guy? Let's talk about him. Cooper Kupp goes to the LA Rams, 3rd-round pick, 69th overall, out of Eastern Washington. Played on that godforsaken, ugly red field. I can't even. I mean, that thing gives me aneurysms just watching football on that. The blue turf, the Smurf turf, I like. The red, terrible. You kind of like this guy, don't you, Waz?
I do.
Stag Party hates him. I love whenever you bring up Cooper Kupp to Stag Party, it's like his blood boils.
Whenever I bring up Cooper Kupp to anybody, it's like their blood boils. I don't know. Cooper Kupp's gonna be one of those guys that I feel for maybe just this year or maybe just next year, where I feel like I'm gonna be against the world, and I'm just hoping in that 2nd to 3rd year, everyone's like, "Oh, okay, you were right." But all right, so Cooper Kupp, not to mention he was the 69th overall pick in the NFL draft. Nice. We talked about how.
Sorry, I was concentrating too hard, and then in the back of my head, I'm like 69. Oh yeah, it sounds pretty fun. Oh, Kupp, 69.
we talked about these last few wide receivers and how they had less than favorable landing spots. We talked about Juju there in Pittsburgh, not so great. Maybe John Ross in Cincinnati, Curtis Samuel in Carolina. So there's a lot of these top wide receiver prospects that we're not super stoked about their landing spot. Now, I know when you hear that Cooper Kupp went to the Los Angeles Rams, you're thinking to yourself, ugh, that sucks. But consider this. All the other top guys, they landed in, meh fantasy situations. But Cooper Kupp landed in a spectacular situation. You need to really consider that Cooper Kupp landed in a spectacular fantasy situation there in the Los Angeles Rams. I really wish I could just say in Los Angeles, but I feel like I'm missing a part. You have to say in the Los Angeles Rams, but whatever. So consider who's Cooper Kupp's, competition for targets. Pharaoh Cooper, Tavon Austin, Robert Woods. Cooper Kupp is far superior to every single one of those guys. Now, it's beyond just a favorable looking scene on the surface. I think my greatest fear for Cooper Kupp initially was that he was going to go to a team that didn't respect what he brought to the table as the smartest, most technically gifted wide receiver in the draft. Although he was taken by a new coaching group that is smitten with him. Like, they love him. They wanted him. They reached up and they got him. And, Cooper Kupp didn't fall in an already loaded team that where he'd have to prove his way into playing time. He was purposefully drafted higher than expectation by a team desperate for wide receivers. He walks in with status, and that's key. So the fact that the Rams took him on purpose and the fact that the coaching staff loves him, ultra talented, in my opinion, professional wide receiver, has a chance to rise up because of the target levels that he'll see. And a lot of people are going to downgrade him because of his 40 time. I'm pretty sure Heartbeat wants to mention how he only ran a 4.6, but they're going to overlook his insanely great 3-cone and his insanely great agility. He's going to be a better version, in my opinion, of Eric Decker. And Eric Decker at the time, he's just been sneaky great for years pre-injury. Cooper Kupp's floor for performance is low, but he will almost certainly not fail. I think Cooper Kupp and the fact that the coaches wanted, McVay over there in Los Angeles, I think it means really good things for him. And I've always been a fan of Jared Goff, and I know he was put into a terrible, terrible situation, thrown to the hounds there halfway through of a terrible broken season. But I think they're going to learn together. I think they're going to work really well together. And I have a lot more to say. I think Cooper Kupp's the wide receiver I could talk to most about in this class next, even before Zay Jones. I could talk Cooper Kupp. I always try to say hashtag the cuppening. It hasn't caught on yet, but I know it will.
Yeah, I will say this. Pro Football Focus gave him a 89.3 overall grade, and that's obviously out of 100, which I know he was at Eastern Carolina. But if he were in the eligible pool, that would have been second among all wide receivers. So he does have the measurements that you won't look for. But he ran a 4.640. I mean,
I told you.
Yeah, you have to question his competition level where, he was the smartest and best player in his division, hands down. I likened him to a Julian Edelman because I'm a Patriots fan and he's white. So they're both deceptively fast. But,
he's got 3 inches. He's got 3 inches on Edelman, which is a good thing. Edelman's not the tallest guy. Great player. But he comes in and out of his breaks real quickly, and Kupp's got that nice 20-yard shuttle. So the one thing I think with Kupp, he gets likened to Edelman's and other white guys, even Welker's, and I think this is kind of might work in his favor. People just think, this is just a whatever mediocre athlete white guy, and he's a lot taller than you give him credit, like a Thielen. Adam Thielen is in that same range where Adam Thielen's 6'3", but when you're looking at him, you just think white wide receiver. Oh, he's got to be like 5'10", 5'11", or whatever. This guy's got a body.
And not just that, D-Rex. Heartbeat even mentioned too, there's scouts and people like you and I that already distrust FCS wide receiver prospects as it is. But when Cooper Kupp ran a mediocre or slower 4.62 40 time at the combine, he was written off as not worthy of a high ranking. I know PFF had him as a high grade, but if you look at the majority of the media, it's so easy to hate on him. but the breakaway speed is it's not his gift. It's his hands, his sharp cuts, his meticulous route running that win the day, that win on the football field. And it's like, so while people are, dismissing his amazing output because of the FCS competition, I agree it's a valid discussion point. But watching all of his tape versus Division I schools, he kicked their asses worse than the FCS schools level of competition didn't, so FCS, the level of competition is what I want to say, didn't make Cooper Kupp, because he played better against D1 schools than he played against FCS schools. So consider that. He has impeccable character, never takes days off or plays off. He was a 3-time academic All-American, FCS level. In Heartbeat mentions Julian Edelman. It's perfect. The funny thing is he has a Julian Edelman and Wes Welker mindset, exploits holes in coverage, catches those passes without hesitating, heads up on the field so swiftly that he defies some of the more athletic defensive backs that are trying to stop him. I love everything about Cooper Kupp. So, I mean, he's even caught the attention of Payne and Eli Manning, because he worked the Manning Passing Academy as a receiver, instantly caught their attention. But
and he broke onto the scene too. He had 93 catches for almost 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns his first year. The first year he played.
That's what I'm saying, man. And his ability to plant his foot and change directions, it's effortless. It looks brilliant. It's what makes him so good. It's not the speed. It's what makes his catches look so simple. He usually spins away from a tackle and finds yards after the catch. I'll always talk him up. I think he is even a better version of a Keenan Allen. He is a tall Julian Edelman, like D-Rex said, like a few inches taller, working the middle of the field. He's a better Chris Hogan. Those kind of receivers. I know these guys are white, but I think a better Keenan Allen is the kind of guy that I think Cooper Kupp can become the more he grows with Los Angeles. So that's my take. That's my rant on Cooper Kupp. I don't care that people are hating him, and I don't care that people like shock jocks like Matt Kelly continue to hate on guys like Cooper Kupp. If you want to be a sheep that follows that herd, you do you. But what I see from Cooper Kupp looks special, and I think the fact that McVay moved up to grab someone like Cooper Kupp, and he has a chance to play immediately, and he's going to get so much volume, and working with that team as they're growing, I think it means a lot for Cooper Kupp's fantasy outlook. It's worth it. His price tag's cheap. Everyone hates on him. Just get a share of him somewhere and reap those benefits, at least in one of your leagues.
I think the one thing
but he only ran a 4 sacks.
I already talked about this.
The one thing I'll say is that I like the Pro Football Focus player comp is TJ Houshmandzadeh. I think that's really good. I think he's an Anquan Bolden. I think Bolden never was the fastest guy ever. He never did lights out, but Bolden was always going and getting that ball, always catching everything his way. So reliable, just so savvy, just when you boxing out, using his body, using his strength, having that control to get catches on any angle. And I think that those are the kind of players that I kind of liken a Kupp to. That Houshmandzadeh makes a lot of sense to me, but also Anquan Bolden, man, he just feels like he's got that kind of I don't know. Every time I watched a tape on this guy, he makes the miraculous catch in traffic, big moment game, and it's like you never thought he was dropping it. He is just as reliable as it gets. So probably the best hands in the draft of any wide receiver. The guy's money on those hands. So I like what you said also, Oz. He's growing up in a team that's young and growing, and he's going to be able to learn and get a lot of opportunity from McVay from day one. So I like his prospects a lot. And one of my big things in anything, whether it's business, whether it's friendship, whether it was my schoolhood stuff, when people are running, I like to walk. When people are walking, I like to run. I'm kind of take a flip side of what the people are around me, whether that's fantasy football, whether that's business, whether that's investment, anything, I think it works. And I think if a lot of people are hating on Cooper Kupp, for me, in that mantra and that mentality, for me, that's a good thing because that means he's going to slide, and I'm going to be able to get him at a better deal because I'm going to be going for this guy.
So since I know that Heartbeat isn't going to do it, I do want to shout out some of his stat lines. I mentioned the five games that he played against Division I teams in his career. It is very noteworthy, and it should be considered because people are bringing to the fact that he played against weaker competition. Here's what he did in his career against Division I teams. So 2013, his college debut against Oregon State, he had 5 catches for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. That same year versus Toledo, he had 5 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. The next year against Washington, 8 catches, 145 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 2015 against Oregon, 15 catches, 246 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then just last year against Washington State, 12 catches, 206 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 5 games versus Division I opponents, and Cooper Kupp averaged 9 catches for 157 yards and nearly 2.5 touchdowns a game against them. The past 3 seasons, he returned 23 punts as well, 3 of them for touchdowns. I mean, Cooper Kupp's even 7 of 10 in passing in college with 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So, I mean, out of 7 passes, he's thrown 4 touchdowns. All in all, Cooper Kupp's accounted for 81 touchdowns in his 4 seasons of college play. He is noteworthy wide receiver. Do not sleep on Cooper Kupp. And I will bang the table over and over everywhere I can on Pyromaniac.com. Do not sleep on Cooper Kupp.
Yeah. Hey, I just have one question though, D-Rex. Where does the sun rise in the morning?
What are you talking about?
Just a direction, north, south, east, west.
It runs in the east.
Okay, well, Jared Goff on last year's Hard Knocks says his response was, "I don't know."
Whatever.
Does it rise the same way every time? My problem is with Jared Goff. I love Cooper Kupp as a prospect. Landing in Los Angeles was probably the worst thing for him to do. And me twice stating that he runs the 4.640, I was building up an Anquan Bolden reference because Anquan Bolden ran a 4.72. So Cooper Kupp has many of the same tangibles, but he does have better intangibles and being shifty, being able to create space. I will never be able to get behind Jared Goff, and the LA Rams are actually going to be the team in this year's All or Nothing on Amazon. That was the Arizona Cardinals last year. So I think before the season starts, we're going to find plenty more reasons to not like Jared Goff.
Oh man, just wait. It's cuppening, man. It's cuppening.
I just tweeted out for you to help make the cuppening a thing, Laz. So let's see if you can do it.
If you go to that hashtag, it's never been used before, and it's only me 4 times. But so thanks for jumping on board.
Yeah, I mean, if we could make the Rams great again, that would be good as well.
All right, let's move on, guys. I'm getting heated here.
There you go. I like this guy too, so I'm with you. I love talking about it with Stags though, just because he so hates this guy. And as we know, when Stags hates somebody, he really hates them. He'll never turn around until they kick butt the following season, and then he's all on board. So, good times. Let's see. I'm excited to watch that guy. My only thing with Goff, hopefully he's worth the 1 overall. But his first, and I don't hate on Goff at all. I think he's got potential in this league. But his first endorsement was Pantene. So that was a little bit of a red flag for me. Like, he went through his whole draft day and it was Pantene. Like, hold on, buddy. This ain't soccer. No offense to any soccer lovers. All right, let's move on to the next guy.
Yeah, D-Rex, I don't think you and I think we're just a little biased against those Pantene promotions.
I want the Rams to be good, even though I feel bad for the St. Louis fans. Funny thing is, one of my buddies, he was the biggest Rams fan. I talked about him on Pyro Podcast in the past, and they moved to LA, and he actually moved from St. Louis to LA within the last. And I texted him over Facebook. I'm like, "Are you going to be a Rams fan again?" He's like, "What's that?" I guess the answer is he hates the NFL. Basically, he lives in LA now, and he can be reunited with his old squad, but that's not part of the move. All right, Tawan Taylor, Tennessee, second wide receiver they take within the first 3 rounds of the draft. This kid's out of Western Kentucky, pick 72 overall. Guy had a huge senior year last year. Huge year. 98 passes, 1,730 yards, and 17 touchdowns. What are you guys seeing out of this guy? Can he make hay and get in the lineup and start making plays this season? Is he more of a long play dynasty? Whoever wants to go first, hit it up, Waz.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think Taywan Taylor is going to be relevant in some shape or form. I don't think he's going to be forgotten about. I love his skill set. I'm growing more and more concerned, though, that it's going to be overlooked and not fully utilized. He's going to wander around in the fantasy desert for years because we know his potential. But, one day he's just going to finally pop, much like someone like Rishard Matthews on the same team did. He always had the potential. And then it took him like getting out of a team or just kind of getting the situation right to really pop and make it work out. So I think it's going to be easy for the Titans to lean heavy on Corey Davis and Rishard Matthews and Delaney Walker and DeMarco Murray in the passing game. They have experience and or the draft status. Taylor, he's going to be fighting for looks for a year or two, most likely. So why are they going to invest heavy in him now when you can get him in, why should we, invest heavy in him now when we can get him for a discount in like 2 to 3 years? He's still going to have the same potential. He will pop. I think he's the kind of player that you need to just sit on and be patient with. Don't go paying the premium right now. I think he's only going 3rd round in rookie mock drafts for Dynasty, but you're going to be able to get him even cheaper after next year, the year after. I love him. I think there's hope. I fear him being the odd man out for targets in Tennessee for 2017. So that's my thought about him for the immediate future.
Can I mention one thing before you go, Heartbeat? Within 29 seconds after I did that, the Cupping post, Stag Party responds, I do not like the Cup man and his fit in the offense, but Waz needs this. 29 seconds. It's like the guy's got Cup-R or something. He's just, oh my God, that is hilarious. You are a madman, Stag Party, but Waz needs this. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make a statement. Have we ever seen this many mid-major wide receivers come out? I mean, I feel like we only have 2 so far that have come from Power 5 schools and have been relevant for a while. And I mean, this guy, Taywan Taylor coming out of Western Kentucky, I mean, I feel like this is the biggest draft with so many unknowns, and that's why we're having so much trouble placing them into like an immediate starting role. Blas is talking about Rishard Matthews, who's in his way. I agree with that. I mean, Taywan Taylor seems more like a trick play. I mean, like he was really, really quick off the ball. He had one of the quickest first steps off the line of scrimmage that I've ever seen. But when is he going to see the field this year?
No, yeah, I don't know. That's going to be the tough thing, unless who knows? They obviously think they needed some help there. I mean, remember, I'm going to space this fucking guy's name, but a couple last the rookie out of I forget his name. They got Sharp, Tajay Sharp. And everyone was fired up about him, and he was a 6th rounder, and it just shows you the glaring hole that they had. They got rid of Kendall Wright. Thank God the Bears got him. Not. So they've got Corey Davis and they've got Rishard Matthews. They pretty much have nothing else. So there might be more opportunity for Taywan than we think.
I don't think it's going to happen as long as Delaney Walker's still around it either.
Yeah, that's
tough.
And let's also remember, this team's a run-first team. I think that as much as we've seen DeMarco and the great season he had last year, and I think he can keep it up, what you layer on top of that burger is some Derrick Henry in his 2nd season. He's going to get more and more action. So this is a team that's going to be a run first. I don't know their percentages on run versus pass, but I think that they've got to be a run heavy over pass. One thing that's impressive with Taylor is junior and senior year, 34 touchdowns. So this guy does know how to find the end zone. He's very touchdown prolific. But I think the one point you guys have with the pedigree in the Senior Bowl, he didn't really last year. He didn't really come and shine and bounce off the page for anyone. Kind of maybe felt like his pedigree was where it was. So let's see. Give me some more goo on this guy. I don't know all that much about him. other than some of these notes and looking at some highlights of him.
Yeah.
Love to hear more.
So to piggyback on what Heartbeat started to talk about is Russell Clay, at Russell J. Clay. You need to absolutely be following this guy. He's sharp, brilliant mind on all these college prospects coming to the NFL. So he mentioned that there's been 42 wide receivers from non-Power 5 schools have been picked in the top 3 rounds of the NFL draft since 2000. 4 in the first round, 12 in the second round, and 3rd in the 26th round. So his theory is that teams are going to be more willing to take chances on these athletic, Power 5 guys and really refine their season with non-Power 5 guys. So we are seeing a trend in that direction. I think a lot of people are realizing that talent isn't just in these Power 5 schools. We see a lot of busts. We see a lot of flameouts. We see a lot of players getting taken early because they're from somewhere like Clemson, like we may see with Mike Williams or Laquan Treadwell, for example. So I just wanted to mention that. When you mentioned it, it kind of reminded me of something I saw today. But to finish up on Taylor for myself, oh, God, that guy's feet. He moves his feet in any direction so fast off the snap. It makes him almost impossible to cover. He can move left, right, or just fire out with such grace and adeptness. It gives him a split-second advantage on these defenders that other receivers, they just can't match. And that most or all the cornerbacks, they can't even keep up with. And so he reminds me, when we're talking about that, quick off the snap move, you see a lot of Odell Beckham Jr. with his feet. I'm not saying he's the kind of receiver like OBJ, but you know how OBJ always gets off that snap so quick, and it makes him so badass there, when he gets targeted. That's what I see with him off the snap. But Steve Smith, not the Steve Smith you're all familiar with, but remember the Giants Steve Smith? I think he plays a lot like, or Taywan Taylor plays a lot like Steve Smith played in the NFL. I know a lot of people may forget, but the guy was very useful running routes. He was very useful, in the game when he played, but he did need to he needed time to get those targets and such. So, but I think Taywan Taylor is just a tremendous athlete. He's buried right now. Do not buy into him for 2017. Probably don't buy into him for 2018. Look at him at the end of 2018, buy him cheap, because the surface is going to look a little different there in Tennessee. And I think he's going to earn his way onto that roster and into those starting lineups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just have a couple of notes here. He actually led the nation with just under 1,000 receiving yards on deep passes, so passes 20 yards downfield. It was 498 was the total this year. And one thing I want to point out is, looking at the Alabama film, they did run a flea flicker where he broke free about 40 yards downfield. He caught the ball, and then he just looked confused. It looked like he was almost anticipating a hit, didn't get hit, and then he fumbled the ball. He ended up picking up the fumble, but it kind of made me question what he's going to be able to do in the open field in the NFL. And just a couple more notes. I do think Cooper Kupp will be very good as a pro.
Wait. So now you're coming back? Are you just trying to make me feel better?
Oh, I did a couple of notes on Taywan Taylor, but then I had a couple note on Cooper Kupp.
Oh, hey.
Wait.
Oh, we got
all right.
PK Ripper, our boy, who's I think watching in right now. What up, Rips? How you doing, brother? He's saying Kupp check.
It's been used. I looked into it, and don't. You're batting on this team, Ripper. Don't get. It's time to follow the company.
The company. I love Ripper. Just while you're listening, dude. The Austin Severian Jenkins article today that I read, how he's cleaned up his act. Oh, I stopped drinking, and I stopped then going and housing when I was drunk. McDonald's. That's the savior to my career. That's the greatest soundbite I've ever heard. How are you doing things so much differently? I stopped getting drunk and then eating McDonald's when I was hammered. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. We're glad you're doing this then. Good luck, ASJ.
I like it, man. I think we talked about it just the other week. He's the target. Yeah.
Well, one thing, I don't know. I don't got who do you guys think this guy could be? Maybe is he similar, Taylor? Is he similar to the guy that they just jettisoned in a Kendall Wright?
No, I'm just gonna. I think Steve Smith, the Giants, Steve Smith, I think he's the closest comp that I see to him. I never was a huge fan of Kendall Wright. I don't see a lot of him. Maybe I'm just a little biased against Kendall Wright, but off the snap, OBJ, in the game, Steve Smith. But I think he's a better kind of player. It's just gonna take us a while or ever to really see his, peak Taywan Taylor. We may never see it. It may take forever, and by that time, he's just gonna be kind of worn out and sick of waiting. It happens.
Well, I do remember with Steve Smith, he made the second biggest play in that Giants' first Super Bowl over the Patriots when they broke the perfect season. He didn't have the one catch on the helmet. The one dude did, but he was the one who caught the ball on the sidelines, patted his feet in, and I'm pretty sure it was a fourth down play. So Steve Smith, a world champion, and a guy that made a difference in that game back in 2008. I remember that vividly. He's out of USC too. USC's got some good wide receivers. Harpy, you got anything you want to drop on us for Taywan?
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is he reminds me a lot of Stephon Diggs, a kind of smaller guy who's shifty, quick, but he wasn't really a big name coming out of college. But I mean, he could have that Stephon Diggs type of production if they do maybe get rid of when DeMarco is out of there, when they have more of a pass heavy offense. I mean, until then. What I think they're doing, I think they're going for the Jacksonville Jaguars last couple of years, where they got Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns, and Marquise Lee. They're just throwing all the balls in. He's kind of a Corey Davis insurance policy in case he doesn't work out as well as they want him to. But I think he could have an impact like those guys down in Jacksonville. It is the same division. I agree with Waz. I don't think it's gonna be anytime soon.
Cool. Let's go down to the next guy. A lot of wide receivers taken in this third round, kind of all bundled right amongst each other. Nice little run here. Our Darius Stewart, the Jets, PK Ripper, take him, and that's round 3, pick 79, and he's out of Alabama. What do you guys think on this fella?
As a Jets fan myself, I want to be excited, but there's just nothing that really stands out for me with our Darius Stewart scouting resume. I mean, he has solid NFL size, 5'11", 204, so he's got that average build. He's got that NFL speed, 4.49 40-yard dash. But after that, I just don't see any reason to really get excited about him, especially when I'm such a big fan of someone like Robbie Anderson and Quincy Nunwa, So it's not with output or his gameplay or his physical frame, but our Darius Stewart is just – I don't get excited when I watch him. I see that he's fast and he has nice bursts, but there's like a million wide receiver prospects that can run around a 4.5 40 time. So when I was watching Alabama, so they had a lot of swing passes too. And he was getting a lot of those. He was getting a lot of little toss and shuttle passes coming across in motion, taking them like a sweep. It wasn't anything complex. So it was kind of boring. He would outrun the coverage from time to time, but he was also not the focus of the coverage downfield. He wasn't even his team's best receiver. So he worked well against the secondary coverage guys on weak SEC teams, but then we saw him struggle against the better teams. So with his thin frame, you get what you see with him. It's nothing special. He looks like a football player, but he's not a guy. He's just a guy, in my opinion.
Yeah. He had the second best yard after catch out of every Power 5 receiver last year at 10.7 yards. But on the other side, 70% of his yards came after the catch for the entire year. And when you watch his film, you don't really see him running north-south ever. He's more of that like Dante Hall. He's going to kind of like shift around. He's going to try to create an opening. I see him as more of a returner than a receiver. And if they think he will have that Devin Hester or Dante Hall impact, he could be a good pick. But as a wide receiver, I don't see the skill set there to be a really strong NFL wide receiver. That being said, of all of the wide receivers, he probably has the quickest. Outside the first round guys, the highly drafted guy, he probably has the quickest path to becoming a starting wide receiver with Eric Decker likely on his way out there, and then it's Robbie Anderson and Quincy Enunwa in New York. But that being said, stay away from him.
I mean, he also has the injury fears, so it's like not only does his talent not warrant taking a big chance on him, he has the injury fears and the vibes that he just gets off on the field. I mean, I think he was suspended a game. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was for. I just personal behavior in 2016, and then in interviews, you get this feeling of just this guy who's just like, you don't see this guy you want to get excited about in any shape or form. So it's just off my radar everywhere. I don't care. And as a Jets fan, it sucks, but whatever. I'm used to it.
That's a bummer. Sorry, buddy. We'll console you. We'll see. I don't know. I watched this guy play, and it seemed to me like you said, he's just a guy. He's like Amani Toomer or something. He's just like from a big program. Did some good things, but is he that great? So we'll check him out. Let's move on to the next guy, and that's going to be Carlos Henderson. Unless someone else wants to throw anything else on. No, we're good. Okay, Carlos Henderson, Denver Broncos, round 3, pick 82 out of Louisiana Tech. This is a guy that's again, not 6 feet, not very fast. Probably had the least amount of bench presses. Nothing really bouncing off the page at you. But I'll let you go maybe first here, Heartbeat. Go first because there's a nice stat here that I know that you want to throw out.
Yeah. So he was picked 82 by Denver. Ardarius Stewart was picked 79 by the New York Jets, and I don't really see that much difference between them. I do think Carlos Henderson is the better football player. And I know the stat that D-Rex was talking about is last season he forced 48 missed tackles, and the next closest receiver was 26. So a lot of the analysis that I saw on him was he's a human joystick. So, I mean, really the same thing that I said about Ardarius Stewart applies to Carlos Henderson. He will be a little bit better, but he's going to be that punt returner, kick returner. And the Denver Broncos already have 2 really good wide receivers in Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And they're both relatively young guys. I don't see him really seeing the field. I mean, we've been trying to talk up that third receiver in Denver for a couple of years now. It didn't happen with Peyton Manning. Didn't happen with Trevor Siemian, and it's not going to happen with Paxton Lynch.
Yeah, I'm not really on board with Carlos Henderson either. I think his teammate there, Louisiana Tech, Trent Taylor, I thought he was far superior as a wide receiver prospect. Carlos Henderson, though, he's a very good, scrappy college wide receiver, solid pro prospect, but he's nothing special. He's really very solid. But he's nothing special. Like I just said, I think he belongs in the NFL. He can contribute. I don't think he's ever going to be fantasy relevant. I don't think, you or I or anyone's really going to be drafting him late in leagues this year or next year or whenever. But from what I see in his data and on his tape, he can contribute. I have very few notes on him, but as like can contribute. Makes work with the football, not a game changer. Smaller inside, good hands. I don't know, but just to me, he looks like every other good, quote unquote, just good college receiver who played in a high flying offense. So in Denver, he's buried. We saw what happened with those third wide receivers that happen. They're in Denver. They get buried. They just flame out. It's never really going to be a thing. I just like Trent Taylor so much more. So I think I would have liked that fit in Denver more than Carlos Henderson. So off my radar as well. Just a guy. We're kind of hitting some of these third round late picks for these teams who are good football players, just fantasy irrelevancy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hover over him because, I mean, basically we're saying stay away in general. I saw a player comp that I liked. Think of Tavon Austin and divide his draft capital by 3.
I put Randall Cobb, and I'm like, I'm not even sure how I still feel about Cobb. He's just kind of one of those guys who's benefiting from Aaron Rodgers. Henderson's not going to get that same treatment. So just imagine Randall Cobb, anywhere else.
All right, Carlos. Let's go to the next guy that kind of was at points throughout his college career, even touching him into the first round potential, and that's Chris Godwin, and out of Penn State. A little bit taller, but he was one of the guys that really surprised everyone in his 40 time. That I thought would maybe move him up a little bit higher than this. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we know that they added Deshaun Jackson, but other than that, they have Adam Humphries, who a lot of people don't think is worth being in the league. So Godwin could get some opportunity here out of Penn State, 84th pick, third round. I'll let you guys talk him up. I'm going to save my kind of stuff a little bit for the next guy, Kenny. What do you guys think are the opportunities here for Chris? Also knowing that they added not only Deshaun, but they've also added O.J. Howard at the tight end position. How many people can you throw the ball to? Which one of you guys wants to go?
I got it. All right. So I love Chris Godwin, man, but I despise the situation. I think you heard me talk down on Jameis Winston more than once. It's not that I think Jameis Winston is a bust. I just think he has a lot of flaws and inefficiencies that affects wide receivers such as Chris Godwin. I think Godwin is the one who would have been utterly brilliant as the Steelers' number 2 wide receiver instead of Juju Smith-Schuster. Instead, he lands in Tampa Bay with erratic Jameis Winston, surrounded by talent everywhere. I think Godwin will be the easiest weapon in Tampa for Jameis Winston to overlook because he's more of a professional wide receiver to be found in holes in the zone, and that's not what Winston's game's been at all from what we've seen. So Winston, he's going to continue to go bombs away to Evans, to D-Jax, dump passes to O.J. Howard and his running backs, and Godwin's just going to be hanging out there in the wind, and he has so much talent in the world, just held to the flaws of Jameis Winston. But look at this way. If Deshaun Jackson gets hurt, which we've seen per usual, Deshaun Jackson gets hurt, the situation starts to change in Godwin's favor. I just hate how many things have to go right to make Chris Godwin a fantasy option. So,
yeah, more the same. He played at Penn State with Christian Hackenberg, and Hackenberg was regarded as a potential number 1 quarterback going into the draft last year, or before the season started last year. And he really, Hackenberg, that has really shit the bed. He ended up being a 3rd round pick by the Jets, and he could start this year, maybe not. But Godwin was kind of the one bright spot on Penn State that year. Other than that, they have an amazing running back this year, but he was only used on the outside. I think he played 2% of his snaps from the slot. So he's not a diverse player. I believe he could come in and fill as a backup for Deshaun. He could learn a lot from Deshaun, but you can't teach that Deshaun Jackson speed. He runs a nice route tree, but I agree with Waz. Deshaun Jackson is there for 2 years. I don't really see him getting the volume to have opportunity as a fantasy asset.
I don't really know much about him. All I know is that it seems like these Penn State guys are always a little undervalued, a little bit fall a little bit, and then when it comes to being pros, they actually are a little bit better than you think. So maybe Godwin's going to be one of those guys. I don't know much about him.
Yeah,
it seems like there's a ton of mouths to feed there. So I would probably stay clear of this dude.
Let me add in just to kind of give some of the listeners an idea if they're not familiar with watching Chris Godwin. I think he's like a young Quincy Nunwa, like a tight end mind with a legit NFL wide receiver body and athleticism, because Godwin's blocking aspect, you can't ignore, he has that as well, and you can't ignore the receiving skills that go along with it. So teams can utilize players such as him. I just don't think he's going to be able to be utilized properly in Tampa Bay. And Dirk Cutter, I can't trust what those guys do there. It's a mess and it's buried. It's a shame for Chris Godwin, but he's probably one of the guys we're going to have to say farewell. Yeah, thanks. It never happened.
Yeah, 2 years down the road, I think he could have he could play a role there. I think he could be. His upside is like that Adam Thielen type, the kind of guy that gets drafted and kind of plays on special teams. Wallace talked about his blocking. He was the 10th best blocker in college football last year as a wide receiver. So he's going to come in, he's going to work hard, he's going to find a way to stay on the team through special teams, through being in very specialized packages on offense. And he could have an impact 2 years down the road. But otherwise, I don't have anything else to add on him.
All right. Yeah. Let's move on to the next guy. I kind of love this guy. I think he's in the perfect situation, and I think he's kind of an NFL elite talent. There's something that tells me that out of all these guys we've got kind of tried to blaze through, this fella might have the longest tenure in the NFL. I've said this before. A lot of things need to go right for these guys to really learn the game, but this is a hard worker. Kenny Galladay, and he was out of Northern Illinois, third-round pick, 96 to Detroit. Obviously, we know Megatron retired 2 years ago. They were able to bring on Marvin Jones. Golden Tate's their number one. After that, it's pretty much bleak city. So I think right now this guy's sitting pretty good. Anquan Bolden's gone. He's not signing again. So it seems like Kenny's going to have a wide receiver 3 slot for the Detroit Lions, who I'm pretty sure threw the ball top 3 of any team out there last year. These guys chuck the friggin' ball. So Stafford obviously coming off a great year. Yeah, he was in attempts. It was he fell down a little bit. Ninth in passing attempts for the Detroit. But this guy came basically as a transfer, came from North Dakota. I think there's a good story that I read about how he was at North Dakota and all his coaches that brought him on. That was the only team that gave him a scholarship. They all got fired. You're friggin' in North Dakota. Got to suck balls to be there in the first place. He's basically, I got to get out of here. So he made himself his own player tape and made a little of all his stats that he had done. And he had some good seasons there at North Dakota, and was able to transfer over to Northern Illinois. It's kind of a under-the-radar program that's actually put out some nice pros over the last 5-10 years. And then now you look, and the guy's a third-round pick and going into a great spot. The film, to me, I know you guys are going to balk because this is, again, probably the third. We talked about T.O. earlier, and, when you compare someone to T.O., it's like guy's like the second or third best wide receiver statistically in the history of the NFL. But to me, this guy looks like Randy Moss. He's got this Moss-esque, the way he runs, the way he's able to kind of scare people with his speed, and people, and he's got that long ranging gait. So he basically is 6'4". He grew like 4 inches after graduating high school. So he hasn't been a tall guy his whole life, and those are some of those players in basketball and football that I really love. Guys like, even you look at Anthony, that center for the NBA on the Pelicans. Like, basically he's a center, but when he went to Kentucky out of high school, he was a point guard. And when you get that size and you grow into and become taller, but you were always a different type of player, I like that. So I don't know. This guy I've got my eyes on. I think he's going to have the opportunity, and he really could. Hopefully, he'll seize it. It's a kind of a good story, and I'm rooting for the dude.
Yeah, obviously, I think we can see that you are truly on board with Kenny Galladay there. You kind of went on for, I think, just as long as you talked about the rest of the guys all together. So it's really cool that you got a guy. The thing is, I don't know. Maybe I didn't really get into him a lot. I know there's a lot of buzz generating around him right now. I know there's a few Roto World blurbs. I know there's a few OTA notes. And I think everyone's starting to throw his name around. I'm seeing it a lot. But what I have on him is, like, he's an NFL wide receiver talent, like no doubt about that. That size, 6'4", 218, 450 or 4.50 40 time in a 7-second 3 cone. It's very good. I mean, that's an NFL starter. He has good hands. He's going to be a quality guy in a roster, but I don't see any upside to where he's going to be great or a game changer, similar to, like you mentioned, things that Randy Moss. I see more quality and competent with Kenny Galladay. But there's like 2 things that bugged me about the film that I watched on him. He runs really sloppy and lazy routes. He seems to round nearly everything and starts drifting away. So, I mean, I don't like a bad route runner. I don't see a lot of them translate well in the NFL and or be successful. I mean, it's all about timing and route running for these coaches and these football teams, and it's so necessary to be successful in the NFL to be a good route runner. And I know he tested very good as an athlete, but while his measurables are good, when you look at him on the field, you don't like. Did you look at his legs? Like, the dude has like super tiny calves, like super tiny legs. I know it's like it's not anything noteworthy. Like, what are you looking at his legs for? Because if you actually watch, you're like, he has like very skinny calves, man. So you think about, he'd be super easy to tackle, or he's going to get hurt, but it just didn't look right. And I'm just like, why is he still running sloppy routes? Can he not like cut properly? Is this like femur giving out in him or something? I don't know, man. I see a competent wide receiver, but there's just a lot of things that just don't look right to me. And if you're not a good route runner, I'm probably not going to invest any capital in any of my drafts, any of my leagues, redraft or dynasty.
Yeah, I think the best thing that could happen to Galladay is he gets number 81, and Matt Stafford gets confused that he's Calvin Johnson back, because he has that Calvin Johnson frame, the 6'4" height. He's a great athlete. I know we got the Twitter and Instagram buzzing on him. I think he jumped onto like a 60-inch platform or something like that. So he's going to get that height meter going for him. He's going to get buzzed up, and those are the guys that I stay away from generally. And dealing with their route running, Golden Tate is one of the best route runners in the NFL. So if he could take a season to kind of be mentored by Golden Tate, learn some things from him, and fix up that route running, I think that could go a long ways for his development as a pro receiver. But overall, this year and in Dynasty, I'm more or less staying away from Kenny Galladay, and I'm more on this Chad Williams guy that we have coming up next.
All right, let's do it. I think the one thing I would say about him is that Bolden almost played like a tight end last year. We mentioned that a bunch on our Pyro podcast. And this guy's actually a bigger dude. So, and I think Ebron blows. I know people want to think that are giving Ebron even another shot. I hear a lot of buzz about him as well, as a guy, as a breakout player. I just don't see it. So I don't know. I think that he comes into the right spot at the right time, but we'll see. But I do agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I think he reminds me of Moss. He's got those skinny as hell legs and that long gait. There's no question about it. That guy's calves are like not the greatest, the strongest looking thing. So let's check it out. I'll keep an eye on that dude. Had some monster years once he transferred over. He's a Chicago guy, man. This guy's a Chicago guy. St. Rita. All right, let's go over to this Chad Williams. Arizona. I think a lot of people wanted Arizona to grab a couple other players, and thought the upside was there, both a wide receiver and a quarterback. But I'll let you guys kind of talk about him. 98th pick in the 3rd round, out of Grambling State, Chad Williams.
So let me start off here because I have a little rant to give on Chad Williams. All right, first off, I think this is the 3rd round player, 90th overall pick. So this is probably going to be our last player since he's the last one in the top 100. But anyways, Chad Williams, he plays with a chip, and he's got a chip on the shoulder, and Bruce Arians loves that. I mean, the door is open for Chad Williams to play right away. The question isn't his abilities; it's Chad Williams' head. Now, here's where it gets a little funny. Chad Williams being overdrafted by the Arizona Cardinals makes all the sense in the world. Bruce Arians seeks out reclamation projects that he can be a father figure to, because it's going to probably be the downfall of Bruce Arians. It's just the way he coaches. He's very emotional. He wants to fix people, and he wants to make troubled players into superstars. And while someone like Bill Belichick's raising the bar for the locker room, Arians is lowering it, and it's catching up to him, and it's about to implode the Cardinals, in my opinion. It started last year, and last year's first round pick, Robert, how do you pronounce this? Like Kimdichie?
It is.
What is it?
Indiche, I believe.
Indiche, I never actually had to say it, but I mean, he was riddled with off-field issues. Now Chad Williams isn't as bad as him, but it's in the same vein. I mean, Williams didn't end up in Grambling because he was in hot demand at Division I schools. I mean, before his senior year in 2016, he was arrested for possession of pot and firearms, hanging out on the LSU campus in the early hours of the morning. Weed and a gun possession charge might be something that you half blow off, but consider the guns in the vehicle were a 9mm, an AK-47, and the reports say and a handgun. Like, what the hell, kid? You know what I mean? But if you flash forward to the most memorable moment of Chad Williams, the Senior Bowl practices, I don't know if you guys remember hearing about that. He got chippy with an opposing player during a drill, then just started to full-on beat the shit out of him, dude. I mean, extra shoving's one thing, but he went like full swing haymakers in an attempt to destroy this other person. He's a loose cannon. He's dangerous. Coming from a small school, already controversial wide receiver prospect, he gets a lucky break invitation, the biggest job interview he'll ever have. There at the, there in Mobile, there at the Senior Bowl, and skepticism of him. He just tries to beat the shit out of a defensive back in a simple drill. So, I mean, God, I hate that so much, dude. But like, that's the Chad Williams that we've known and we've learned about. But the funny thing is, Bruce Arians says, that's just my kind of guy. It's so Bruce Arians, man. And I mean, can the guy play? Yeah. I mean, he could play 6 foot, 207 yards, 4.43 40 time in his pro day. He's NFL athletic. He has a solid, thick frame. There's a reason why Bruce Arians likes him. He could be a handful to bring down after the catch. He has some decent receiver instincts. His hands, I think, are in question. He has decent hands, but he does do a lot of those body catches that you mentioned that everyone hates T-Rex. And he does that a lot from what I've seen. He can get away with that in the lower levels of college at Grambling State, but you can't get away with that in the pros, dude. So I'm Chad Williams. I hate it, dude. I don't know. And there's a lot of buzz because he has all these intangibles, but the dude is really messed up in the head. And I think he's a hothead. I think he's going to have temperament issues. I think he's going to get in trouble. No doubt about it. With that track record, no doubt about it.
Yeah, you know who he reminds me of is Justin Blackman. Just really talented, tons of personal problems, out of the league in 2 years. Get him while you can in Dynasty or in DFS rather, when he's going to be playing for the big games. Bruce Arians actually brought him in to be the heir apparent of Larry Fitzgerald. And I saw a great article posted by ESPN that Larry Fitzgerald says, he reminds me of Anquan Boldin in terms of strength of his hands. Once it touches his hands, it doesn't move. He's got unbelievably strong hands. End of quote.
No. Yeah, hands against his body, man.
Larry Fitzgerald is hands down the nicest person in the NFL. So a compliment from Larry Fitzgerald, although I love him, he might be my favorite player, it doesn't really mean all that much. He's just kind of, talking up his guy, trying to get him some confidence. But Williams is really not a guy that needs all that much confidence. He's more likely to, pull a knife on one of the D-backs for forcing him out of bounds than, say the Our Father before the game. I mean, he has the potential. He has the skills to be a good wide receiver, especially if he learns a lot from Larry Fitz and what we think to be Larry Fitz's last year. But these guys, these wide receivers that have character problems, I mean, Justin Blackman, you talk about Josh Gordon, you talk about Martavis Bryant. These guys are the ones that are heavily targeted by Goodell, it seems. And I don't want to start anti-Goodell. I mean, we all hate Goodell, but the receivers are the most visible guys, and they're the ones that get penalized the most. You got something, D-Rex?
There's the other guy, Ishmael Zamora from Baylor, that was caught beating his dog. But before all that stuff surfaces, that guy was one of the considered, as football viable at the position as it comes in the 2017 draft. He actually signed with the Raiders, so we won't go into that much. But a player I'll keep my eye on. He's got the talents of the gods, but he's just kind of a head case.
You know who the guy to target as a rookie in Arizona is? It's not Chad Williams. I think it's like Krishan Hogan. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but this guy, while he needs he's really inexperienced, and he has a path to become the shock player, because if Chad Williams isn't working out and you have like super tiny guys like Smokey Brown or JG Nelson that aren't true number twos, they shouldn't be, and after Larry leaves, Krishan Hogan has a path to relevancy, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he performs in this preseason. I'm willing to draft him in late rounds and rookie drafts and stuff like that over in dynasty leagues over Chad Williams for sure. So I don't know. There's so much buzz surrounding it. It just seems like a terrible, terrible recipe for disaster. I know this is probably a sad story to end on for our night, but I guess, we'll save the worst for last, right?
Sure. I mean, is there anything that you wanted to quickly rattle off? I won't say a word, but is there anything that you thought worth talking on? Darbo or D.D. Westbrook heartbeat, if you wanted to talk about them. If not, we can close it out. And as always, on our Pyro podcast, we'll be talking about a lot of these guys at a position level throughout the offseason. And you'll be able to see these notes that we've done for certain rookies as a piece within the rookie dossier coming out in the next handful of days.
I don't have much on Darbo. He's more of he was in Michigan, and he's kind of like the Jake Butt of the receivers. He didn't really stand out in any aspect. He was just kind of there as a receiver. But D.D. Westbrook, he came out of Oklahoma. He actually was in a similar situation to Joe Mixon. However, charges were never pressed, and he recently signed with his agent is run by Lil Wayne's company. So I'm on board with D.D. Westbrook. He's gonna wreck shit. He's gonna probably be kicked out of the league in about 6 weeks, but
purple nurple
out quickly.
All right, cool. Well, guys, good friggin' stuff as usual. We wrapping up our wide receiver show for rookies 2017 draft class. Obviously, stay with us throughout with all the news feeds, all of our articles, all of our Pyro podcasts. We got the draft kit is going to be coming out within the next 4 to 7 days, I believe. I'm not going to hold Stag Party 2 a date, but we're working hard on that. He's closing it out. We've got the best draft kit in the industry, so make sure you check that out. Guys, we're going a little bit late, but thanks for squeezing us in here, Heartbeat. I know you got a lot of stuff on your plate right now. Hope you enjoy your pops being in town starting tomorrow and all that good stuff. Waz, get to bed. You got to get up early. I love hearing about these rookies and your knowledge on all this stuff. So, amen. I'm D-Rex. Thanks, fellas. Check out Pyromaniac.com, the only fantasy football site with a soul. We'll be recording our Pyro podcast next week. We took a week off this week because I'm doing this show, and we're giving Stag Party and Houdini an opportunity, and Waz to be on the show with me to do an opportunity to kind of get some of the components done for this draft kit. So awesome stuff. Thanks for joining us. Peace.